Every match that has been signed for AEW Grand Slam Australia so far has included an Australian or New Zealand star, and Saturday's AEW Collision, which was confirmed, is no different. Following weeks of avoiding her, Australian Harley Cameron eventually accepted the challenge from AEW TBS champion Mercedes Mone. This will be Cameron's maiden AEW title attempt in her native country. The fifth Grand Slam match to be confirmed and the third with a championship at stake is Mone vs. Cameron. It started with Harley Halftime in Houston, a segment in which Cameron performed her song Mone Train for the Houston audience while sporting her Mone puppet on her back. As is frequently the case with Cameron, it was a convoluted path before she eventually secured a match with Mone. Mone herself emerged as a result, and she was very immediately exposed to yet another song, which was basically another song-based challenge. Mone briefly seemed to be won over as the audience joined Cameron in chanting "Feel the Wrath," but she quickly interrupted Cameron's performance and reiterated her denial of the challenge, stating, "You are not on my level, loser." Nevertheless, Cameron made one last plea, ending a touching speech about her perseverance with a little more combative statement that the most entertaining that you've ever been is when I had my hand up your puppet ass. Mone slapped him as a result, of course, but Cameron yelled, "Feel the wrath," and slammed the microphone into Mone's face. A furious Mone ultimately consented to wrestle Cameron in Brisbane while she was recuperating on the outside, risking the TBS championship at Grand Slam. Given that Cameron just recorded her maiden AEW victory, some may be shocked to see her given a chance to win the title, but this push seemed rather obvious, since they began training together in November. Mone has been gushing about Cameron in her weekly magazine, Mone Mag, and Cameron has been attracting a lot of attention lately because of her well-received comedy performances and musical prowess. Charlotte Flair has once again stirred the pot, and in this video, I'm diving into what she said, what she did, and why I'm honestly on the fence about whether I agree with her or not. Let's unpack this, because as usual, Flair is at the center of controversy. After being sidelined since December 2023 due to a serious injury, a torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus sustained in a SmackDown match with Asuka, Charlotte Flair is back. And boy, did she make a grand return. She came back with a bang by winning the Women's Royal Rumble match, and since then, she's made quite a few waves. She appeared on the February 3rd episode of Monday Night Raw, engaging in a segment with none other than Rhea Ripley, the current Women's World Champion. During this exchange, Rhea told Charlotte to make her pick regarding her opponent for WrestleMania, but Charlotte, in true Flair fashion, wasn't interested in making an immediate decision. Instead, she said she was going to take her time, exploring her options by heading to NXT and SmackDown. Fast forward to the February 4th episode of NXT, and Charlotte Flair confronts NXT Women's Champion, Roxanne Perez. She has a segment with former NXT Women's Champion, Indy Hartwell, and even shares some moments with former fellow NXT Champion, Bayley. This added an interesting layer to her storyline, as she prepares for her ultimate decision. Now, I previously speculated that Charlotte Flair wouldn't make us wait until the night of WrestleMania to decide on her opponent. There's a 2.5-month gap before WrestleMania, and I think we can expect her to pick someone before that. My guess? It's going to be Tiffany Stratton. The chemistry and potential between Charlotte and Tiffany are undeniable, and it seems like a logical match to make. But this video isn't about the prediction, it's about the controversy Charlotte stirred up during her NXT appearance and the comments she made afterward that are still making waves in the wrestling world. Flair, as we know, has always been a polarizing figure. Some fans believe she's overrated, and others feel her push is more than justified. It's no secret that WWE has pushed Charlotte Flair to the moon year after year. She's been given the spotlight consistently, and her record is undeniable. Every single year she's been on the main roster, she's won a championship, and honestly, it's almost absurd to think about. Whether you love her or not, there's no denying that Charlotte has cemented her place as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, women's wrestlers of all time. Some would argue Trish Stratus still holds that title, but Charlotte is certainly in the running. So after her NXT appearance, Charlotte did an interview with NXT Digital, where she spoke about her time in NXT and how the experience of returning to the developmental brand felt. Here's what she said. "I spent a year and a half here training. All my rehab was here. My first time hitting the ropes, getting in the ring, getting familiar with the girls who are now in NXT. So to come back where I'm homegrown, where my first match was, where my coaches are, it's always so real to come back. I remember your roots. They definitely gave me a warm welcome, so I was very appreciative. I also had the opportunity to talk about Roxanne and JC in the Women's Royal Rumble because they did an incredible job. They're not me, but they will get there. but they really did impress me. They knocked it out of the park. I do truly believe that NXT has the greatest women's division in the world. I do think Raw and SmackDown, when they get there, it's going to be a different ballgame. But here's where you build the foundation. And they're killing it, so I couldn't have been more proud to give them the opportunity to say, hey, I might pick you. I might pick you. I might pick you. That's what it's all about, because I picked an NXT Women's Champion the last time I won the Women's Royal Rumble. So who knows who I'm going to pick? It's on my terms. Let's break this down. Charlotte's words sparked a lot of conversations because of what she said about NXT's women's division. Specifically, she stated that NXT has the greatest women's division in the world, which, let's be honest, is a bold statement, and I can see why people are up in arms about it. To her credit, Charlotte makes a solid point. NXT has a lot of talent on its roster, and she's been impressed by the women's division in developmental. In her eyes, NXT is where the foundation is built, and she's proud to give some of these NXT stars their shine. But here's the thing, is NXT's women's division the best in the world? That's where I take issue. As much as I respect the talent in NXT, I can't agree with Charlotte on this one. While the NXT women's division is absolutely stacked with potential stars like Roxanne Perez, Gigi Dolan, and Tiffany Stratton, I still don't think it holds the crown over the main roster or other promotions. The NXT women's division is deep, no doubt. Roxanne Perez is a prodigy, and Julia, formerly known as Niven, is a force. Stephanie Valkyrie is one to watch, and Zarya from Australia could have a huge future. But when you compare it to the talent on the main roster and in other promotions like AEW, NXT doesn't quite stack up. Let's take a look at the main roster. Raw and SmackDown have some of the biggest names in women's wrestling: Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Asuka, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Charlotte Flair herself, and others. Plus, it's been reported that we'll be seeing Alexa Bliss return soon. The list goes on and on. WWE has spent years building a deep roster of women who could go down in history as some of the greatest of all time. This is the most loaded women's division WWE has ever had. Now let's talk about AEW. Charlotte may be right in acknowledging that WWE is top dog when it comes to the main roster, but there's no denying that AEW has its own strong roster of women. Toni Storm, Britt Baker, Mercedes Mone, Willow Nightingale, Nyla Rose, Chris Statlander, these are all top-tier talents. If you take AEW's women's division and compare it to NXT's, it's clear to me that AEW has a deeper pool of talent. The stars in AEW have been able to showcase their skills on a bigger stage and have really pushed the boundaries of what we've seen from women's wrestling in recent years. So, do I agree with Charlotte that NXT has the best women's division? No, I don't. But I do think NXT is an important part of WWE's overall growth and development. NXT is a breeding ground for young, hungry talent, and it plays a vital role in developing the stars of tomorrow. I just think Charlotte was a little overzealous in her claim. That said, I can't deny that Charlotte Flair knows exactly how to get people talking. Whether you love her or hate her, she always finds herself in the center of the conversation. The controversy surrounding her words only adds to her star power. People are always debating about her position in the company, whether she deserves to be pushed this much or if she's overrated. But love her or hate her, Charlotte Flair knows how to keep the conversation going. She's a master at keeping herself in the spotlight, and WWE knows how to use that to their advantage. In conclusion, I think Charlotte made a statement that will have a lasting impact on how people view NXT and its women's division. However, I don't agree that it's the greatest women's division in the world. WWE's main roster is stacked, and AEW's women's division is also no slouch. But I do give Charlotte credit for her ability to stir up controversy and keep the wrestling world talking. It'll be interesting to see what happens when the NXT women's stars eventually make it to the main roster, as that's when the real fireworks will happen. So let's see what happens when Charlotte finally picks her opponent for WrestleMania, whether it's Tiffany Stratton or someone else. Either way, one thing's for sure, Charlotte Flair knows how to make an impact.